Between half to almost 90% of properties that go to auction in New Zealand actually sell there. So if you're serious about buying a home, you need a strategy to deal with the high-stakes game that auctions present. Today, we're covering how to bid like a seasoned pro if you're a first-timer buying a property at auction in New Zealand. For some context, real estate agents are masters of the PSYOP. They've honed this skill over thousands of open homes, and if they've done their job well, and most of them do, the vendor or the seller of the property will start out feeling confident, but at the end, they'll be freaking out on the big day, thinking that they won't get what they were hoping for. And at the same time, the agent may also have you questioning whether your A game is good enough too. So both on your side and on the vendor's side, there's expectations around price that may need some adjusting. And there's typically only 3 weeks to get all of that done before the big auction day. So let's start from the beginning. The marketing campaign, the auction marketing campaign. Usually it's a 3-week program of open homes, followed by a hired auctioneer selling the home either on site or in a dedicated auction room. Apart from the real estate commission, the vendor typically commits to a marketing budget for this whole exercise. Now, the best way to visualize the price expectations throughout this process is to picture a greater than symbol. At the top, you have the vendor with high hopes around price, often inflated by the agent's initial appraisal when they were listing the property. At the bottom, well, that's usually you, cautiously optimistic and maybe even hoping for a bargain, especially after you visit the first open home. The agent's role is to manipulate your estimation of price upwards by carefully calling the price low at the start to watch the pool of interested parties grow while simultaneously bringing the vendor's feet back down to earth, often known in the industry as kneecapping. Again, all of this has to happen in order to get those two sides meeting in the middle at the auction. It seems a bit stressful though, right? And you're not alone in feeling the squeeze of expectations going on through this 3-week auction marketing campaign. Many vendors hate the process too. But here's the thing, the auction process itself can be a great equalizer. It forces both you and the vendor to confront the market reality. If there are enough interested and qualified buyers out there and the vendor has a compelling reason to sell, the auction can almost run itself. So if you're serious about buying, you're likely going to find yourself in an auction room sooner or later. It's best to get prepared. So considering that greater than symbol again, as time goes on through this typically 3-week period, eventually the big day of the auction arrives, where if everything goes according to plan, the tempered optimism of the vendor meets the subdued pessimism of the purchaser. Expect a bit of theater on the day, but remember that between 50 to 90% of the time, the property is going to be sold in a very short space of time. The auctioneer will often start the bidding low to get the room warmed up, and when they announce that the property is on the market, that's your cue. The highest bidder at the fall of the hammer 3 times takes the keys home. If the bidding stalls, now don't be shocked if the auctioneer takes a time out to chat with the vendor. They might just lower their reserve to meet the current highest bid. Occasionally, though, the property does pass in because there's no bids or there's no bids at the right level. Now, that's not the end of the process. The agent will usually try to play matchmaker between the highest bidder and the vendor until all avenues are exhausted. It's often only at this stage, by the way, that if you avoided the auction successfully, you now may have a chance with a conditional offer, allowing you time to proceed more at your chosen pace with an opportunity for due diligence on your terms. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty, the 3 headspaces that you need to be in to get the edge during the bidding. Number 1, trust what the agent says, just not about price. Agents have 2 faces, one for you and one for the vendor. They may have told the vendor what they needed to hear just to get the listing or the option to sell the property. Now, that's not true with every real estate agent, but sometimes. And you might hear yourself as the purchaser what you need to hear in order to think that you actually have a fighting chance to own the property. On your end, though, you should never really ask directly what the property will sell for from the agent. But instead, you might want to consider making an educated guess in front of the agent and listen to their response. They'll advise that you have competition at that level, or you have a fighting chance at that level based on your guess. So that is your cue. It's not perfect science, but that's your cue that maybe you should get serious and consider the other types of due diligence, like consulting your mortgage advisor, solicitor, and arranging a building or evaluation report if it's required. Number 2, be skeptical of the pre-auction offer. Now, this is a common area where buyers can get their emotions ripped apart, and it's advisable to tread really carefully here. A pre-auction offer is where you submit an unconditional offer ahead of the auction date in the hope that the auction is either canceled or it scares away the competition on the first bid. Now, it can work, but more often than not, you're simply setting the reserve for other bidders to start from. Every situation is different, of course, with pre-auction offers, and occasionally I have seen them actually work out quite well, but just know that in general, it's quite likely that you're actually just being used by the agent to help condition the vendor's expectation on price downwards. Cue the hate mail from the real estate agents. I'm very sorry for those that I know out there. Now, a better strategy than trying to outmaneuver the competition using pre-auction offers is to know the market well. Do your research. Hope for a bargain, yes, but don't make that the objective. And if you do that, you're more likely to actually be the homeowner when the hammer falls. Just know what similar properties have been selling for in the area. So the last way to get the edge is to know your 3 numbers. Before you even think about raising that hand, and after you've done a bit of your own research around recent sales, write down these 3 numbers on a piece of paper. The market price, which is the price someone else may pay for the property. The price that you'd like to pay, which is what you'd be proud of, but most likely it's unrealistic. And your absolute top dollar. This is the most that you can pay based on how much your mortgage payments and your other costs are going to be long-term. Stick to the script with these 3 numbers, and you'll either walk out of that auction room with no regrets or set of keys. So you can strategize all day long about the speed of your hand going up and down, or you can try to game the system with pre-auction offers, but only the buyers with confidence seem to be the winners on the day. That's what I've seen. And that confidence, I think, comes from knowing your numbers. What's the property worth? What would you like to pay? And what could you pay? Stick to those numbers and you'll walk out of the auction room with the keys to your new home, or at least your dignity intact. Now, if you're hungry for more insights like this, check out the Home Buyer's Blueprint. It's an online course designed not just to help you buy better, but also to save big on your mortgage. Trust me, it's a game changer. We'll catch you on the next video.